and we're going to talk about imposter syndrome today. I'm an in-house lawyer, and I am also a life coach. The name of my business is Edge of Becoming, and I help professional women become their future selves by better managing their time, energy, and mindset.
I'm Erin Young. I have been practicing law now for 22 years, mostly as an insurance defense lawyer. I am currently with the firm of Hall Booth Smith, which is based in Atlanta, about 200 lawyers. I'm in the Charlotte office. And I focus my practice primarily on medical malpractice defense, but I also do a lot of general liability defense, a lot of professional licensing, disciplinary board hearings, and that sort of thing. So that's me.
All right, great. Well, so we're going to dive right in. So when I was asked to do this segment, I was trying to think about who to interview, and I ran a Google search for imposter syndrome and Black women, and Erin's article popped up first. So it's titled "How I Overcame Imposter Syndrome as a Black Woman in Law." So starting out, I think probably most of the people viewing this video have heard about imposter syndrome, but I thought it would be helpful to just quickly define it. And Erin has a definition in her article, which I'll read. And according to psychology professionals, imposter syndrome is a psychological pattern in which one doubts one's accomplishments and has a persistent internalized fear of being exposed as a fraud. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you came to know that you had imposter syndrome? When did that begin to creep up in your life?
Unfortunately for me, I'm mid-career now. I hate to say that. I could say I was a young lawyer for many years, but it took many years of practicing before I realized that I was constantly doubting myself based on nothing more than the fact that I was constantly surrounded by white men, as kind of the standard for, who is smart and who knows things and just kind of the standard we all are faced with in most aspects of our life. Um, and I think it took many years of practice before I realized, as I'm sitting in this room and hearing responses and comments and discussions from many white male attorneys, that were ideas that I was having myself,
Mm-hmm.
or thoughts that I was having myself, or they were saying things that were sort of, I've been doing this a long time and that just doesn't make that much sense to me.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately for me, it took many years of practice and developing confidence through, learning what I'm doing and practicing, to realize that all these years I've been doubting myself, and they're no smarter than I am. Their ideas are no better than I am. But it took a lot of years of practice and figuring that out and developing experiences before I was able to finally put a name to what I had been experiencing as a young attorney, or even student for that matter. Um, and I don't know how I came to realize, maybe I was watching a television show or reading an article. I don't know how I came to realize that it had a name, that
Yeah.
imposter syndrome was what it was. But I just, thought I've been doing this a long time. I probably have some ideas and some experiences that I can share with others about what I'm feeling. And it really, as proven by the fact that you found it and
Yes.
identified with it, it resonated with a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
particularly Black women.
Yeah. And so the rest of your article, I think, is really great because it focuses on what you did about it. And you have a lot of great tips. The first one I wanted to talk about was you belong in the room.
I probably was a little more, I just frankly said, own that shit. You belong there.
Yeah.
As Black women or minorities, or just anybody struggling with a lack of confidence in their own abilities, you have to really believe and accept that you have worked as hard as anybody else, and you deserve the place that you have earned wherever you are, whether it's in a
Mhm.
firm or whether it's in-house, or whether it's in government, public service, whatever you want to do. It was you that got into law school based on your credentials, primarily for Black women, not because of someone we knew, not because of family members, not
Yeah.
because of a long lineage of folks who, had gone to law school. I was one of the first in my family, or certainly the first in my immediate family to ever go to law school. But I had to finally accept I belong here just as much as the next person. And once you accept that and kind of realize I worked hard. I earned these things. I completed all of these extracurricular activities and built this resume to get in law
Yeah.
school. And so you have to own it and just realize you're not here because of, or accept and try to tell yourself you're not here because of some quota, because still in the back of your mind, you're wondering. Um, but own it. You belong there. And it takes a while to really realize that you can stand on your own laurels as a person who has earned a place wherever you are.
Yeah, I love that. That applies to everyone. I mean, to all Black women, to women, right? In
Right.
any sort of professional setting. Everything isn't personal, right?
Yes.
That's something else that you kept in mind. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I do feel, and I don't want to alienate any generations, but I'm a proud member of Generation X. And so I can look into these younger generations, millennials and Generation Z. And there is a tendency, of course, my parents, baby boomers, and folks like that would probably say the same thing about my generation, is that we don't have a thick enough skin. We tend to internalize everything, and that doesn't
Mhm.
mean just the marginalized sort of populations that I kind of focused the article towards. Um, but we tend to take everything personally. So sometimes when you're being criticized about your work, or you're receiving some sort of constructive feedback
Mhm.
about something that you've written, a brief, anything of that nature, imposter syndrome, because we're kind of, let me think about the best way to say this, because of our self-esteem issues, we tend to internalize those comments as he's picking on me or she's picking on me because I'm a woman, because
Mhm.
I'm a minority. And that's really, in many cases, I'd probably say most cases, just not the case. Sometimes it just is what it is. You are
Yeah.
being criticized because your work needs improvement. You're receiving this feedback because you
Mhm.
can be better. And so I think the flip side of imposter syndrome, we kind of feel like we're going to be exposed as a fraud. That's the primary definition. But the flip side of that is that perhaps we overestimate our abilities in some cases. I'm better than that, and they just don't see it because I'm a Black
Yeah.
woman. And,
Mhm.
and frequently that may not be the case. It may just be, that brief was terrible. You need to rewrite it.
You have stopped trying to fit in, and you've got here, I don't golf. I could care less about sports. I don't drink beer. And I used to think I needed to do these things to be accepted, to get clients, to impress my partners. I didn't, and I look silly trying. In my experiences, I've learned that the part of the beauty of being a Black woman is that we set the standard of what is cool. So embrace who you are and be yourself.
That is absolutely true. I think, we have been taught, not, and certainly not just Black women, but as women, the way
Yeah.
to get ahead is to learn to play golf,
Yeah.
or learn to drink a certain type of whiskey, so you can have these conversations with the majority of your peers, which for us would, for a long time, was white men. Thankfully, there are more women coming into the profession and that are in the profession than when I started. But the thought was, you're not going to get ahead if you don't know how to do these things. And I just realized that's not me. I'm not being authentic if
Yep.
I'm trying to play golf. I don't
Yeah.
care. I'm bored. I get bored at putt putt. I can't even get through 18 holes of putt putt. So it just, I accepted who I was, and
Yeah.
realized that there is benefit to being who I am. Um, and so once you stop pretending, and just accept who you are and be that person, I
Yeah.
think you will find that you'll get farther than pretending.
And then one of the last ones I wanted to talk about was managing your assumptions and preconceptions about others. And here you have take a hard look at yourself as well. Are you projecting your own preconceived beliefs onto others? And although imposter syndrome causes us to question our own worth, be sure to give everyone else a fair shake as well. Most people have worked hard for their achievements, put out the same energy and um, trust you want to receive.
And that kind of goes hand in hand with what we were talking about previously, is that
Yep.
sometimes a comment about your work is
Yep.
just a comment about your work. And a lot of times we have to remember, even though we or I and a lot of people that may be listening to this are a part of sort of a marginalized population, a minority, female, that sort of thing. Um, we shouldn't go into every interaction with other people assuming or wearing that on our sleeve.
Yeah.
Um, there are plenty of white men in this world, and I don't mean to pick on white men. So if y'all are listening to this, I'm not picking on on white men specifically, but not we have to be mindful of the fact that not every white person, not every male got where they are because something was handed to them. We've
Exactly.
all worked hard.
Yeah.
And so we need to manage our own preconceptions about, um, who we're dealing with.
Yeah.
They've worked just as hard, they've experienced things. Everybody has a cross to bear. And so I think that, that's just as important as developing self-confidence in your who you are because of who you are.
Kind of the segues into the last one that we're going to talk about. Let your hard work speak for itself. It's kind of like taking some of that energy um, that you're using to sort of focus on what everyone else is thinking about you, and maybe even the judgments that you're projecting on other people, and really just pouring that into focusing on the task at hand and focusing on what you can control.
Right. And that you can control is the work that you do. Let your work speak for itself. And I think historically, kind of when I put that in there, we'd always been taught as Black people, or at least I had been, is that you got to work twice as hard to get half as far. Um,
Yeah.
and that's sort of always in the back of my mind. But I also try not to leave doubt for myself. I don't want my work product to ever be less than my best, because I don't want to leave that question out there for myself that I just got passed along because of some quota, of some arbitrary need to have a diversity
Yeah.
representative in a situation. I want to be satisfied in my heart, in my mind, that the work I've done is the best, and so that there is no question as to why I belong in the room.
Yeah. But why do you think women, and maybe even particularly Black women, I guess, are more prone to experience imposter syndrome?
Women definitely are, just naturally are going to be more prone to doubt ourselves
Yeah.
because particularly in the workplace, for many, many years, we were the minority.
Yeah.
Uh, our bosses, our peers were all men. And I feel like we were sort of less was expected of us. You get
Mhm.
married, you have a
Yeah.
baby. Oh, she's not going to be around much longer. And we're constantly working to try and prove, I can get married, I can have the baby and still
Yeah.
bill, 2,000 hours a year, whatever the case may be. I'm definitely over that. And maybe I'll do another blog post on whether or not you can actually have it all. But
Yeah.
for
That's good.
now, the thought is, for women, we're dealing with that. And then for Black women or women of color, we have that double whammy of not only are we the weaker sex, but we're also, a minority racially. And we
Yeah.
have to balance both of those things. And we're constantly trying to prove, that we can do it because we're a woman. And just because I'm Black doesn't mean, I can't do certain things, or I shouldn't be expected to do certain things.
Yeah.
And today, and I don't want to talk too much about it, but 22 years ago, the whole phrase black girl magic didn't exist. That's kind of a recent phenomenon, to develop a pride in who you are as a black female, as a female, that to see that as an asset as opposed to a liability.
Mhm.
And I think that is helping many women to see that this is something I can use to my advantage, as opposed to being ashamed and
Yes.
being worried,
Yeah.
um, that this is a liability in the workplace, or professionally, where whatever your space is.
Um, Maybe one little tidbit of advice, one last little piece of advice for the participants.
The most important thing for anybody suffering from imposter syndrome, male, female, black or white, to remember is that you are not alone.
Mhm.
Everybody has their own insecurities and issues with self-esteem that they're bringing into whatever space they're in. The fact that you Googled it and looked it up,
Yeah.
the fact that I Googled it when I was working on the article, and there's so much out there, and there really is a kinship with others. You are not alone. Everybody is feeling that way, and the key to kind of overcoming it is to use what you perceive to be as your disadvantage, whether it's your race or your gender, or being socioeconomically disadvantaged, to use those things to your advantage.
Yeah.
um and that's I think that's probably it. You are not alone.